And so here we are with this Kawasaki 750, arguably the ultimate in two-strokes.
Well, it was certainly one of the performance champions of its time. Kawasaki had launched a 500cc version of a three-cylinder, two-cycle engine for the street back in 1969, which came about the same time as Honda's 750 four-cycle engine, which was their superbike. Kawasaki didn't quite have an answer yet, so they stuck with their two-stroke roots, making a three-cylinder 500, and then the following year, it grew to 750 cc's, and boy, what a bike that became. These things had power to spare. They also had one of the most abrupt power bands that you could ever imagine. You hit 4,000 to 5,000 RPM on this bike, you better be pointed in the direction you want to go.
So in terms of power, they were the equal of the 750 four-stroke engines, but in terms of drivability and rideability, a very, very different animal. Is that sort of closer to a race bike's performance band, or?
Well, as evidence in how many of these bikes got sold to people who were going down to their local drag strips on the weekends and racing their street bikes, or even just out on the streets, you know, on a Friday night, that there would be a little bit of street racing competition going on. These were a favorite. They were inexpensive, they had great performance, they had a sub 12-second quarter mile that you could get for roughly about $1,300, which was a lot of bang for the buck.
You bring something up, Chuck, which I think is very interesting. We've looked at a number of motorcycles here in our chat and also in the exhibition that were sort of streetable versions and inspired by the road racing motorcycles. We haven't really talked about drag racing in motorcycles. How did drag racing in motorcycles, and especially I'd imagine that's a very American thing, how did that influence the motorcycle manufacturers around this time when people were really starting to build super bikes for the road?
Well, it was certainly another performance criteria that they could hang on the tag in the dealer showroom. You had a bike that would do a 13, 12-second quarter mile, and that's also what many of the motorcycle journalists would be looking at as they did comparison tests on these different motorcycles. How fast will it do the quarter mile? What's the ultimate top speed? But the quarter mile really became a big deal back in the age of performance motorcycles. Now, one of the key ingredients with the two-stroke engines was that during the age of performance motorcycling, which was arguably the mid to late 70s, it was running about 5 to 7 years behind what was happening in the automotive clean air quality government regulation. Motorcycles got away with it for a little bit longer, but EPA regulations for motorcycle emissions were later to kill the two-stroke altogether in US sales.
It makes perfect sense. As we were talking before, the performance characteristics of the two-stroke engine are many. However, one of the downsides is the fact that you are burning oil and putting it out into the air. But in terms of the marketability, was it a point of honor to ride a two-stroke when the world was moving towards the four-stroke engines?
Well, certainly the people who rode them either on the track or at the drag strip, they definitely wanted the two-strokes to stay around because they were inexpensive, lighter weight, and you could actually tune them to give peak performance. And a lot of that was done not necessarily with carburetors and pistons and things such as that. You didn't have camshafts to change out. So a lot of the performance characteristics actually were a function of the shape of the exhaust pipes. And this particular bike here has got some aftermarket exhausts on it that are known as expansion chambers. And they would fine-tune the power band to a particular RPM range, and that's where the power would really kick in.
It's one of the things that has always amused me, and I'm sure amused you as a motorcyclist. The fact that you see in movies all the time chases between motorcycles and cars. You mentioned these sub 13-second quarter miles, and the fact that the power to weight ratio in any motorcycle beats that of just about any car built. why is it that Hollywood insists that the motorcyclist can't get away from that Chevy Impala that's chasing him?
Well, there's also the matter of the size of the contact patch too, because 9 times out of 10, they catch the motorcyclist because the motorcyclist makes some crazy mistakes and goes riding over a curb or off of a cliff or doing something crazy, which is, I think, the way a lot of people always sort of portray motorcyclists as being the crazy guy on the super fast vehicle. However, when Honda and some of the other manufacturers, BMW, even Harley-Davidson, started sophisticating their motorcycles, it became far more acceptable. And you had your doctors and lawyers and other respected people in society now taking up motorcycles so that they could, at least for a couple of weekends during the year, they could be bad to the bone as well.
So whether from a Lambretta scooter through a Husqvarna off-roader to this Kawasaki 750, these two-strokes deliver amazing power and great fun no matter what you're doing. Thanks, Jack.
Thank you, Donald.